Welcome everyone. Here we are, round 2 of the Australian Club Series 2022. I'm here, Jethro Nagel from the Press Room podcast, and my co-host tonight, Gracie Elvin. Gracie, how are you today? How are you feeling?
Hey Jethro, and hey everyone watching at home. I'm good. This is my first time ever commentating an esport event, so that's pretty cool. That's the day and age we're living in, and I think that's awesome.
Yeah, I know, 2022. It's pretty cool, and it's really cool to be here for the second round of the Club Series. And if you're just tuning in for the first time, the Club Series is basically all of the clubs in Australia, Gracie. Okay, they're all coming together on Zwift, and they're competing for the ultimate prize, or at least in my view, which is your own club jersey in the game. And there's plenty of people in the game, Gracie, who are, I guess, looking for that jersey that's a bit unique and, what better than your own club jersey in the game?
For sure, there's so many cool features on Zwift, and having your own club jersey, I think, is a really great thing to try and go to strive for. So I know that I would like my ones, but I'm happier sitting down on my chair rather than on the bike. So I'm
Yeah, I
excited to
guess.
see how they all go.
You need that one in the background there. What's that one in the background? Is that your national champs kit? Oh,
Yes, that
nice.
actually is Kimberly's. That's her national champs jersey from the Crit Nationals. So I don't have any of mine framed. Maybe I should one day put them up.
Yeah, I reckon. Well, we're going to go through the club standings, Gracie. Why don't you take everyone through who is leading after round 1?
Round one saw Bathurst Cycling Club in third, Viking Cycling Club, which is a Canberra club where I'm from, in second, and Waratah Masters in first.
Mm. All right, yeah, well, they did well there. We're going to go into the course now. This course here, Makuri Islands. All right, everyone, this is a wicked course released in, Neokyo and then also Makuri Islands, a combination, 25 kilometres long, 105 metres elevation. Now, let me tell you, this course is called Wandering Flats. That is, Gracie, fake news. Okay, the second half of this course, in fact, the last 5Ks, it's basically all uphill. It's much harder than it looks. You can see the profile on the bottom of the screen there, and just how it sort of kicks up at the end. It actually ramps up from that little orange dot quite a bit. So I think the sprinters who really came to the force in the first round are going to find it pretty difficult to stay on in that 20 to 22 kilometer mark. So definitely tuning in. If you're going to tune in for the whole thing, the back end is going to be super exciting. And also a thing to note, the fast start in the men's 106 starters. It's downhill for the first 3K. So it's going to be absolutely lightning and a really good sit in the bunch. So pretty exciting, Gracie. It's going to be a good night of racing.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a really interesting course compared to last week. And it's a similar amount of climbing, but I think that, like you said, having it pushed into that back end of the race is going to make it really difficult for people hoping that it's a bunch finish.
Oh yeah, there's going to be people launching left, right, and centre. That 19 kilometre to go mark is it's certainly where it kicks off, and well, actually, it's about 19.1 k's into the race. That's where all the elevation is, and I reckon a few people are getting stitched up looking at this profile. And be a little bit surprised at the end, which I'm sure, Gracie, has probably happened to you before in your racing days. Were you ever given a stage where it said it was mostly flat, but then there were some sneaky hills in there?
Definitely. The Giro Rosa was terrible for that. The stage profiles in the Racebrook were very deceptive, and you would be very disappointed mid-stage and out the back sometimes because it was much hillier. So I feel for anyone that's been in that situation. I feel like that's what's going to feel like today.
Absolutely. Last round was it was the food. It was the meals that were doing the round. We had Kate Spicy in the women's having a good race, and and also mashed potato, the infamous mashed potato. I've actually got some Japanese white sweet potato in the fridge, waiting for dinner tonight. So just in a bit of a call to arms for the mash tonight. So we're about 30 seconds away from the stream. With only, I think there's about 8 A grade women this round, Gracie, a couple more than last time. That's always going to be pretty dynamic racing as well, with only 8 or 9 on the racing.
That's right. It's a different kind of race. Even though it's virtual, they're still getting a draft. So the more riders there are, the more dynamic it's going to be. It's not going to be an individual time trial like it can be with so few riders. So I hope that they play a bit more tactically tonight. There was certainly some strong women out there last week.
Yeah. And we're just going on board. We've already kicked off, and what are we greeted with? We're greeted with the racing and the aero jerseys that we see from the AusCycling Club, prominent Zwift units, and they've got a few big hitters today in that team. None other than Sam Hill, we know, is a super talented Zwift rider and a part of the Zwift Academy finals as well. But Gracie, like I mentioned, and everyone can see now in the top right-hand corner, look at the gradient. -2, -3%. It is all downhill. In the game, they're going 62k an hour. There ain't nobody getting away or trying off the front at this stage. But, what do you reckon? Big bunch, Gracie. So we can just see the bunch rolling through this really cool part of the Makuri Islands. Goes through, I guess, a real throwback to traditional Japan, that sort of onsen village style. And you can see the bunch moving super quick. We're just going through seeing a few names there. T. Stewart, we've got Nick Booth. We've got, who have we got there? We've got Jellyfish, Jellyfish. There's quite a few riders there and a lot of different jerseys as well. And you'll see that some teams are organised and they have their own in-game jerseys, like the Aero team. We're seeing A. Benrose there as well. The Benrose family had a good day out in round 1, but we're going to see a pretty, I guess, safe start to the race, everyone. We're looking at this gradient, -4, -5. For the first 3K, it's just downhill. So they're going to hit a country sprint. We'll see if anyone goes for a bit of sprint points. Somebody will always launch. We're actually on board with Sam Hill at the moment as a part of the Aero team. And we can see the watts per kilos everyone's pushing around that 4, 5 watts per kilo mark. That's pretty high. The start, we know, is always pretty quick when we're operating in the Zwift racing. And it starts to sort of settle down as you get into the race. And we've already clocked 2Ks on the bike race. And I guess we'll see those watts per kilos just ticking down. And I wonder, as we wait for Gracie to come back on board, will anyone try and go off the front in this race as we're about to approach the first sprint, which is actually called the country sprint? It's about 2Ks long, but as you can see, nobody is taking part. Actually, someone is having a go off the sprint, and I wonder, just a bit of, just having a go. They're getting brought back very quickly. Gracie, back online. What do you think about the start so far?
Oh, sorry, everyone. Classic internet dying at the worst moment. Back online. Luckily, I've got my phone data. All good. Look, this bunch looks like it's flying, and they just tore out of the gate. Even the women's field looks like they're going across very, very quickly now. Sprint the gun, and that was what I hated about that category of racing. And what I liked about regular to start off at a little bit of an easier pace, but no, in Zwift, it's just, full gas from the start. And you can see a few people trying to break away here, but that bunch is still very much together.
Yeah, definitely. We're going to cross to the women's race now, which has a few more entries in this week, which is fantastic. We're on board with Megan Gammy, which actually, funnily enough, is from WA and happens to be in the other room to me tonight. What a legend. She's just chinging away. I can hear the ergo going. And we've got a nice little bunch of maybe, it looks like there's 10 riders. Let me count. We've got Kel McQueen, Beck Manning, Ella Fanzarano, Megan Gammy, Kate Spicy from last week really lit it up in the first round. Marjan McGarry, Jessica Bemrose as well had a good day out. Catherine Ellie, Lam Kong, and Nikki Hale and Rija Dar. So there's quite a few numbers there, and it's going to be interesting to see with Kate Spicy's performance last week and Jessica Bemrose, how would the bunch react? I think those girls will be the ones to watch today, Gracie. They had a really good day out in the first round.
They really did. I'm super excited about Steph Corset, but Kate Spicey was the one that really made the race really dynamic last week. It's nice to see a group of a little bit bigger group this week, and they are working well together. But even on Zwift, it looks like they're sussing each other out a little bit. They're riding at that 3 watts, 3.5 up to 4 watts per kilo. So they're not waiting around.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's often the way of club racing sometimes as well. We all know we've all raced in clubs, and especially in the women's categories where it's like that in Perth sometimes. We can have some great fields in the women's, but it can act very cagey at the start of a race, just feeling each other out and no one's ready to throw down the gauntlet. But last week, I'm pretty sure from memory, there was a few early attacks. So I wonder, will we get that? And there is a couple of launch pads, but again, Gracie, towards the back end of the course, as we're seeing them just wind through the Makuri Islands. And this course in particular, it's pretty interesting to look at, but this flat section won't offer too much, so the girls are going to have to get it done themselves.
Yeah, that's right. They'll have to start making decisions soon, because it's not a very long race, really. You don't have that much time to, see the tactics playing out. And for some riders, they'll have that better 20-minute power, and they need to use that advantage rather than wait for the sprint. So they'll want to really draw some weaker riders out and isolate them by making it a bit harder a bit earlier.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm just looking at the Zwift powers here, everyone. I can see Catherine Alley has a 20-minute power registered at 4.5 watts per kilo at 53 kilos as well. So I think she's going to be one to watch on that final little berg on the Wandering Flats, as it's called, as we're going to cross back to the men's. And we've got a bit of, that little dirt section. We're watching, let me just get this legend's name, Torben Patridge Madsen, what a name. Let's just call him TPM from the AusCycling Club. He's off the front, Gracie, and he's got a little bit of a gap. Says it looks a lot on the map, but we're operating on about a 2-second gap, which he's rolling at 6.5 watts per kilo. That's pretty handy. That's definitely operating the sort of 300 to 400 watt mark. What do you reckon, Gracie? A move this early looks good.
Yeah, it does look good. And man, I'm so impressed by some of the powers that these riders can hold. I certainly would not have been a successful Zwift racer. That was not ever my strength. You can see the bunch chasing him down, but it's a bit like a real race. If there's a solo rider out in front, who chases? It's not necessarily anyone's responsibility, because there's not a group of threats up the road. If a team misses it, they're then the ones that are going to have to chase. Like this bunch back here, they're probably just going to leave him out to dry a little bit and just hope that he tires and wears himself out, and then the next person will go, or the bunch will just keep escalating their speed.
Yeah, definitely, Gracie. And I think this might be a tactic from the Aero team that we're seeing. Even though they're racing in their clubs, representing their clubs, I think in this A-grade bunch, they're racing within their Zwift clubs. And I'm definitely going to say that Aero are one of those teams that are going to be racing this way. So with TPM off the front right now, and the bunch just slowly reeling the back in, I think we're going to see counter moves from the other Aero racers from that team. And how about this course? And here we go. This is C. Roberts. He's launching now over the top of TPM, another Aero member, and they're putting the onus on the bunch to chase from the other clubs. And look at them just chinging through the Neokyo circuit. How cool is this world? When you ride through this world, Gracie, it's a really, really cool one. I was on it as soon as it dropped in November, I think. There's so much to see. You really got to ride it, sort of that zone 1 ride, to capture everything that is going on in this town. There's all sorts of little Easter eggs that you can see. And now, all of a sudden, Gracie, we've got 2 up front with someone else in there, a little third wheel who's trying to get amongst this little break.
Yeah, this is a really interesting move. But as you can see, that bunch has not left them much room at all. But to have 2 Aero riders out front is a huge threat to everyone else. And like you said, they are effectively the strongest team. In my opinion, they've got some great riders there, and they're certainly going on the offensive tonight. And, that's what we want to see. We want to see them try and mix it up. We want to see them drawing out some of those other stronger riders, and that's what they're really doing tonight. But yeah, going on from your comments about this particular world, Makuri Islands, I love it. It's my favorite. I'm constantly get distracted by everything that they've put into this game. It's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. We've just seen another move off the front by N Kane, just trying to find his stats through the Zwift Power right now. There's 100+ riders in this A grade bunch. It really is the cream of the crop. But someone else throwing down the gauntlet. Actually, it's TK. I wonder what that stands for. We'll find out his name soon. But there's definitely lots to look at in this course, and you'll notice to launch from the bunch with 125 riders, it takes a huge effort as Michael Gallagher is now going 8 watts per kilo over the top with an aero boost to throw in a launch. You've really got to go that sort of 7, 8, 9 watts per kilo launch out of the bunch, and then you've got to be holding 5 to 6 watts per kilo just to stay a couple of seconds ahead of the bunch. But it's certainly kicking off, Gracie, and I just wonder, would there be tactics? I mean, have they talked about this with the climbs coming in the back end? Would you be approaching the race this way, attacking early, trying to soften up the bunch before that sort of harder last 5K?
That's a great question, Jethro. Personally, I would not. I'm a sprinter through and through, so I'd be just waiting and making sure that I was saving as much as possible. But some of these riders, Michael Gallagher is a great example. He was really attacking last week as well. He wants to get away. He's got that big engine. He wants to make it hard for everyone, and that is a good tactic for riders like that. And they want to come into that final climb with everyone else more tired than they are. Of course, they're getting tired too, but the tactic is that they're just trying to put everyone else at a disadvantage.
All right, we've just got an attack now in the women's race, and we've seen someone, Jessica Benrose, has obviously launched the first attack. We've seen Megan Gammy in second wheel closing, getting onto that wheel. I can hear the ergo in the other room now. She's closed the gap. The bunch coming up, rolling up on top of them. It looks like it's going to get closed again, and it's kind of that criterium sort of dynamic that we talked about last week with Keno, when you're in that nice smooth hot mix in a crit and you attack off the bunch. The collective speed of the peloton behind you can really mop you up quite quickly, and that is often how Zwift racing works, and it seems to be back together now as they're hitting the night circuit. It's actually 100% in nighttime, Nyoko, when they're going through the city, as we're just seeing some of my favourite restaurants just lined through the streets there. But it's all back together, and sometimes the first move, Gracie, sort of throws the cat amongst the pigeons, and everyone starts to attack. So I reckon after that first one, we won't be far away before we see another attack.
That's right. I think in real racing, that was always that moment of who's going to attack first. No one really wants to be the first attack because that doesn't usually stay away or stick. Everyone wants to counter it. They want to see what people's cards are. You want to, get people to show their hand a little bit. And this is what's happening now in this race. So, yeah, look, there's some strong female riders in this group, and they're looking at each other. But I'd say that it's not too far away that we're going to see another attack in this women's race.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they've got a few, there's even a bit of chat going on in the race. Kate Spicey saying, I don't think this one will be up for broadcast. And someone, Megan Gammy, saying, it is. Lol, I'll snap, as Kate Spicey replies. Look at this. I'm just getting shouted out on the game. In fact, this whole race is being broadcast from my house here in Perth. If they're chatting, it ain't going that hard. So they're certainly watching each other on taking it very easy. Still very easy. This is A-grade racing. 3 watts per kilo. They're still going pretty hard, and they're going to go through one of the coolest sections of the race, of this map, Gracie, when they go through the arcade section. Now, that is one part everyone has to ride super easy and play around with the viewing, so you can see to your left and right, because there's so many Easter eggs. You see that little dog, the Shiba Inu, jumping through hula hoops, I think, as well. Megan has one of those dogs called Tosh. Shout out Tosh. But Gracie, they're all watching each other. I think they're waiting for that final climb, 10Ks in.
That's right. I think they're watching each other, and they will not see the cool views that they're riding past right now. They're just focusing on the riders in front and around them, and they're focusing on their breathing. And I'm sure it's already starting to hurt, even though they're chatting. Some of these chats are pretty funny, I have to say. I'm actually impressed that they're able to type at all. I led a Zwift ride this afternoon, and my watts per kilo were very low because it's hard to type and ride and not get too sweaty on your phone.
Yeah, yeah, it certainly is, and a lot of people in their setups, Grace, they've got Bluetooth keyboards, Bluetooth mouses, and mice right next to their right next to the computer. So it is a little bit easier, but they're certainly watching each other. And I thought we might touch on the bike setups now. It's an important part of the racing, particularly if you're on a predominantly flat course or a predominantly hilly course. If you're choosing a lighter setup or an aero setup, as we zoom in, have a look at that focus. That is really nice. The bike choice makes a big difference, and your level in the game allows you to choose faster components. Now, most of the women seem to be on the fastest setup that they could probably get for the level. We've seen Tron bikes. We're seeing obviously the what have we got? The Cervelo S5. If riders are rolling that disc wheel in the back that you can see there on the top rider with the Afro, what a setup! That's a very fast setup. That's the S-Works Venge, and then the DT Swiss Arc disc setup, which is one of the fastest setups in the game. So you know that a rider is rolling on one of those. They are certainly above the level of 35, I think. So it plays a big part, and even if it's only seconds, Gracie, those little differences, much like in real life, is also a psychological boost too.
Massively. I really love this part of Zwift, that your levels are what buy you the better equipment. So if you're out on a bunch ride in real life, it's how much money that person spent on those wheels or that frame or all the other bits and pieces. But in Zwift, it's your ride time is what your bike is bought with, and I think that's fantastic. The Tron bike is
Yeah.
usually the most desirable, and it's a pretty fast bike. And I love that in Zwift it gives you different watts as well. So the slower bikes are slower. It's only a matter of a few watts here and there, but like over the course of a race or a long climb, it really does make a difference.
Yeah, it does. And we've just seen a big attack. I think this one was from, just trying to find the name there, F Yazar. Looks like from a Chinese rider who's also participating in this race, and she is charging at the moment 4.7 watts per kilo, and that has seen 2 or 3 riders out the back. A couple of sessions off, they're still in touch. You can see there on the right hand side, plus 2 seconds, plus 4 seconds, they're in touch, but this group may be reduced down to a group of 5, and that is the Chinese rider going gangbusters and just using the little slight rise as they came out of the city onto the highway, the causeway, if you will, and she's pushing on, Gracie. She's still pushing on, and the girls are going to have to close this up. I think she's had enough of the chat, and she's going, it's time to race, and finally a little bit of action. And we're seeing the gaps sort of open up, and I don't have the details here on Zwift power from this rider, but she's obviously very strong, Gracie, very strong indeed. As
Yeah,
Kate
that was a
Spicer
great
goes,
attack.
yes.
And another thing
Vector
too,
Z
if you
power.
get dropped, it's like real life too.
Yeah, it is extremely hard to get back on if you get
Back to the
shelled,
group.
no doubt about it. Yep. And we're going to go back to the men's race here. How about, this is the arcade setup. If this was in real life, I would love to come here, and I wouldn't be riding through here. I would be on all those little games. You've got Dance Dance Revolution. You've got the skill testers, the driving things, all that stuff. You've got the Doge meme dog jumping around in there. Too fast. The boys are going through here 47 k's an hour. You ain't seen no dogs doing backflips. As we're seeing TPM from the Aero Racing team. He's on the boulevard, and he is stretching a little attack again. And Aero, they've certainly been the most aggressive racing here. They've done 15 Ks, and well, maybe they don't have a sprinter, Gracie. Maybe perhaps that's their tactic. Try and get away and split up the race, because if it comes down to a sprint, there's guys like Mashed Potato who are putting out 1,200 watts on the ergo for a 15-second sprint. Well, I'll say the response to that is absolutely mental. If you're putting out 1,200 plus watts on the ergo in a sprint on Zwift, that is danger, and that's what guys like Mashed Potato are dealing with. As I'm just rolling through some of the watts here, who else has got a tough sprint? We've got, just chatting here, Gracie, going through some of the guys who've got epic sprints in here. 15 seconds is about Joshua Haggerty, who won it last week for the clubs, he's got a 1,300 watt 15-second sprint. That is mental. Absolutely mental.
To do that
So certainly
stationary
one.
is really actually.
Yeah, it's massive. You'd be wanting to bolt that trainer down if you're putting out. I mean, that's a 1,300 watt average. Everyone that's listening, so you got to imagine what the peak power is there. There's probably a 16 or a 1,700 watt peak power on the trainer. Someone get that trainer bolted into the floor, please. But yes, Gracie, it's the Aero boys again. Look at this 1-2 TPM, and then who else is up there? This is the young Cadell Howie who was popping off last week. Look at them all go. They're really stirring it up.
How great
As they're
is
going into the
that
time.
there's a young rider named after Cadell Evans? He's super strong. Some of his stats are awesome. So I'm really excited to see some of these younger riders coming through on this platform too. It's such a great opportunity for them to show their strength and potentially get picked up through Zwift Academy or even on a National Road Series team.
Yeah, absolutely. The Zwift Academy could be a step up. We've seen Alex Bogner push on to the Alpecin Phoenix team as well as young Maud Alderman, but there was plenty of Aussies in the Zwift Academy, and that is because the Zwift racing scene, as you can see, is so super strong, and the men's are approaching the gravel sector, and we're seeing Kate Spicy on the right-hand side. She has taken the arcade and she is on the attack, and she's got 1, 2, 3. She's got about a 2 second gap, and it looks like the girls behind, led by Jessica Benrose, Kate Ellie, Beck Manning, they are closing it down. And I think just given the flat parkour, it's going to be closed again, but it certainly is stretching them out. 4.5 watts per kilo, Spicy on the front. We've got Ardar also in the wheel, but it's coming back together. A few riders distance now. We have a split. We've got 5 up front. Megan Gammy's still in there. Yes, that's pretty good. Beck Manning as well. But this girl's trying to get back on. Look, not far away. That's going to come back together, Gracie. But we've seen attacks. And I think the men are about to hit the spiciest section of the race. So I wonder how they're going leading into that hill climb. We're going to swap into them now. 18 Ks. In the lead up into a climb, Gracie, in real life, how important is positioning?
Super important. And in this world, it's actually not that much different. If you're mid-pack or you've floated back just a little bit and someone goes on the attack, it's just that much harder to jump across. You weren't on the wheel. So in real life, I was always making sure that I was near the front of the group coming into an important sector. Usually for me, it was cobbles or crosswinds, but for climbing too, it's just the same. And I think for this race, there's going to be a lot of jostling there. You have to balance out how much energy you're putting in. And we can see a rider attack now, looks like from the aero team as well. Another attack. It's Cadell Howie, and he is flying at the moment for such a young rider in a group this size. This is a really exciting ride from him. I wonder how much gap he's going to get before they start reeling him back in again.
Well, I think he's going to have a pretty good time as they hit this berg. He has launched a little bit early. He's only 53 kilos, so he must be maybe as the size of this avatar we're seeing here in real life right now. And he's certainly got a good engine, and he'll really like the inclines here, but I think Cadell's gone a little bit early. They're going to hit the radius to rise maybe about 200, 300, 400 meters, but he's gone a touch too early, and now he's going to get swallowed up, and he's going to have to sort of stomp back onto the pedals, generate the pace again to move back up through the bunch, because I think we're going to see him again launch from the bunch. And this is where the sprinters are going to want to hang on. They're going to sit in the bunch, use their feathers. You're seeing feathers being deployed now, and that is probably from some of the boys who've got a long sprint, who want to feel as easy as possible in this next 2K. Look at this, feathers everywhere. It's like you just kicked a pillow. They are popping off, and we're going to see a few attacks now, I'm sure, from some of the lighter riders, Gracie.
I love that you've said that they've just kicked a pillow. I think that's a really fascinating part of Zwift racing, how you can use some of those power-ups. And I'm still getting the hang of it. I certainly failed a few times in some of the group rides that turned into races, that not doing it properly. But now we have Michael Gallagher again going on another attack. He is really strong. He really wants to take his chance, but the bunch is just going a bit too fast. They're not wanting to let anyone go. I think it's just going to be such a tough effort coming up this climb. I think there's going to be a lot of riders hurting now.
Yeah, there is. They've just hit the steepest part, that sort of 10% pinch where you really just give a little bit extra into the ergo to get up and over, keep your momentum. They're still rolling at 37 k's an hour, but look at the bunch on the right-hand side. In the little map, you can see the dots. It's all lined out, and you're starting to see separation, all those little avatars. And look at the field. You can see there's a tail of riders who will be head down, buried in sweat, trying to get back on, because with a front group that size, it's still about, well, it's huge. If you're not in the draft at the back, it's near on impossible to get back on once the gradient goes back down to sort of 1-2. And I think from memory, as they snake around, pick up again, and then it dives down. So look at the splits in the bunch. There's splits everywhere. Those riders, they've got about maybe 400-500 meters in the game to get back into the wheel. Otherwise, their race is done, and we're looking at the top, looks like 30 riders, Gracie. They're going to ride away to the sprint finish because they're not in the draft. We're seeing an attack over the top, Gracie. Who is this? Who have we got going off the line? That is C. Roberts.
Yeah, this is another strong attack by Aero. They are being the most aggressive today by far. They really want to get someone up the road. They don't want this to come down to a group sprint. Gosh, these guys must be fit. It's really cool to see the bunch being whittled down so much. And it wasn't even that steep of a climb. 4 or 5% in real life are still going to hurt you, but it's still quite fast when you're in the wheels of a bunch. So to still have dropped that many riders, they must have been going pretty quick.
Yeah, they pretty much sat on around 6.5 to 7 watts per kilo to maintain in the front group. So if you've done this course before, and you've got over that climb in the front group, just have a remember and go check your Zwift power, see what you were doing on that climb, and you'll get an idea for just how fast they were moving in this A-grade bunch, which is just full of quality. Someone's going over the top from the Sparrows, Zed Mewett, and he's popping off as well, so he's obviously had a good sit in the bunch, but they're going through the onsen village here. Now, the rest of this section of the course, of the Wandering Flats, it actually goes downhill. So if you've made it in the bunch now, it's a good opportunity to just wind those watts down. They'll probably be sitting around the 3.6, 3.8 watts per kilo mark in the bunch if they play it correctly, and basically save yourself for the sprint. So we'll go through the list here on the right-hand side, and we'll see who of those guys who've got a massive kick is still in the bunch. Now, Nick from VeloKicks is there. We want to be looking mashed potato. The Danger Man is there. I wonder, has Haggerty made it? The man who's got 1,400 watts under the hood. We'll just see if he's there, Gracie. But this looks like the front group, and we're going to see a sprint of around 30, 31 riders. Luke.
Yeah, I think we've got our fan favourite of mashed potato still there. He's trying to bring that British cuisine to the Japanese islands. But I've also spotted Nick Spratt there. I think he's a bit of a dark horse. He tried to go for a late attack last week coming into the finish.
Yep.
Maybe he'll play a bit differently this time.
Yeah. Nick Spratt went too early last week. No doubt about that. But he's one to look at in that finish. We're seeing him in that red and black jersey. That's like a level 1 jersey. I like that. But he's got a kick. Look out for him in the finish. There's not long to go, actually. There's less than 3Ks. And don't forget, it's all downhill. You can see that negative 3%. We've got someone in pink just chinging off the front there. And how about this? I'm not going to pronounce that name. It might be Yui in his home country in Japan. This man's going for a late flyer, but I tell you what, he's going to get reeled back in, and the bunch will like this too. Someone just off the front, Gracie, who's just a little carrot. Let him sit out there, reel him in, and it gives their sprinters a chance to sit in with 2K to go.
Yeah, really no time left now. Any late attack has to come very soon. Otherwise, it'll be a bunch sprint for sure. I could see Sam Hill from Aero Racing just sniffing around the front there. I was thinking maybe he was going to go for one more attack. certainly the Hill brothers, it's their signature move to be super aggressive. So, I'm still putting my money on an attack coming from Sam Hill, but, he's quite strong as well. Maybe he wants to try his luck today in the sprint.
Yep, definitely. We've got Gallagher, Michael going off the front again. They're going to go over the little island as well as they cross this section. It's quite cool. You can see in the map in the middle of the screen at the top there. Going to go over the top of that. Michael Gallagher's giving it everything. He's going 6.5 watts per kilo. They get a reeling back in. This is definitely going to come down to a sprint. And I wonder who's got any power-ups. Do the riders, have they saved maybe the aero boost or the draft van to help them in the sprint? Because that makes a massive difference at, I guess, the speeds with 1K to go that they're sprinting with. Now, the Japanese sensation is going again over the top, and he is actually causing quite a bit of hurt in this bunch. Now, we're looking now, Nick from Velikix is always up the front. We've got E. Dowes there, N. Kane, T. Stevenson. They're going over the bridge. How sick is this scenery? Whoever developed this in the game, unbelievable. There's not one to go 800 metres, Gracie. It's starting to split up, starting to heat up.
There's certainly a lot of people biding their time, though. They really want to get their timing right. And what I find interesting is, the timing of when you press that button. It's not easy to do when you're going full gas in the saddle and you're sweating everywhere. So that's a skill in itself.
Yep, it certainly is. We've got 400 metres to go. Let's strap in. Everyone's going to be waiting, just sitting out of the saddle. A. Sinclair already ramping it up. The sprint has started very early. Will we see anyone? 200 metres to go. How about A. Evans? He's got an absolutely hooking gap here. He's got 12, 13 watts per kilo with the aero boost, but here comes the bunch. Now, where is everyone? We're just waiting. Was that the finish? Are they still going? I can't even tell. That is the finish. I wonder. We'll go to a replay very, very soon. But a launch super early with the aero boost. A. Evans, who was coming up behind? Sam Hill in the aero jersey, in the aero booster. He used his late, came over the top. You can see quite a prominent Zwifter in the disc setup with the Venge. We've seen another aero jersey as well from Nick Velokicks, but how about this? This is A. Evans still on the front. So he's launched. We're watching him. He's getting about 100 metres to go. Here comes the bunch now. Now, did they catch them? We're going to need Zed Muays there. Barry, A. Bemrose, mashed potatoes there. Look at the watts they're doing. 14, 15 watts per kilo. They're coming over the top, but I think A. Evans has done it. A. Evans has taken the win. Nick from Velokicks is there. Mashed potato, not quite the main meal tonight, but A. Evans, the man. What a play, Gracie. He launched early.
Yeah, that was a perfectly timed sprint. It was a long sprint, but man, he was strong. Now I'm really looking forward to seeing how the women are going to play this out. Bemrose is looking really strong. She's attacked and it looks like she's pulled away one other rider with her. I'm not sure where the rest are, but they can't be far behind.
Yeah, we're looking like the F. Yassar has... Oh, no, Jessica Bemrose is in the front. No, yeah, we've got... Yeah, so we've got F. Yassar 22 seconds ahead, just sitting on 4.6 watts per kilo. But for the club's points, she's not on a smart trainer, so we can't verify whether or not that power is correct. So let's just operate on Jessica Bemrose sitting with Kate Ellie. Is it Kate Ellie? Is Catherine Ellie, sorry, excuse me. Spicy's there, Beck Manning. Ardar is the front group. So this is the group of 5, Gracie, that we're seeing with about 3Ks to go. Group of 5. Well, you're only 2 away from the podium. What do you reckon?
Look, there's a good chance for a few of these riders here today. I think my money's on Spicy. She had the goods last week, couldn't quite finish it off. I think she wants some redemption tonight.
Yeah, and just looking at a sprint on Zwift Power, 640 watt average for 15 seconds, about 10 watts per kilo. That's a pretty decent kick out of these girls. But who else? We've got Beck Manning. Doesn't look like she's got much of a sprint looking at her Zwift Power, so she might be one that will go a little bit early, and she doesn't have much time left, about 1.8 Ks to go. Who else is in this front group? Jessica Benrose, so close last week, 11.6 watts per kilo, 640 watts in the sprint. Jessica looks like the fastest one out of this group. And with 1.5 Ks to go, she'll be pretty happy with this bunch, but still about timing. As we saw, Gracie, with A. Evans going early with the booster, the aero power up, that can make a big difference too.
Yeah, that's right. And it looked like the finish line was not in sight until right at the very end. So it is about timing, just like it is in a real race. If you can't see the finish line and you haven't done a recon, then it is quite hard to know it. And in this game, they're not exactly getting a countdown like you have the signs in real life of 200 meters to go, 150. So I think it's a bit of a skill too to know exactly when you want to start your sprint, what suits you, but also, how the road is winding through all the way to that finish line.
Yeah, definitely. And it does pay to recon the course, even just the backside of this circuit, just so you know, okay, with 1K to go, we're hitting this funky little bridge here, going over the water. That's really cool, but that's your cue. Get ready. I mean, there's rider going from 1 kilometer out. That is Ardar. Are they going to respond to this? That is a very early move using the draft. They've responded. I think she's gone too early. The cherry blossoms, a little out of season. That's a couple of weeks too late for the cherry blossoms, but that's okay. Hard to update. 700 metres to go. Still Ardar out in front. Jessica Benrose hasn't used her kick just yet, but she's closed that one down. Spicy Manning, Catherine Ellie in the wheel. Jessica was first to close that down. There's 500 metres to go. We're on board with Jessica. She's using the draft boost now, and she has hit the front. 7.8 watts per kilo. Catherine Ellie's in the wheel. You can see Ardar ramping it up. Look at the orange over the top. Ardar. And Jessica's falling back. Catherine Ellie's looking good. She's timed it well. As we said, it's coming up quick, the sprint, about 50 metres to go. But how about the rider? Beck Manning's coming through. Beck Manning's steaming through. And there's about 50 metres left. But here comes Benrose. She's left it super late. And Benrose over Manning. I don't know. Is there a photo finish? That was Wout van Aert, Tom Pidcock, circa Amstel Gold 2021 style. We need to see a replay, Gracie.
We do. That was definitely a photo finish. How exciting. Bemro is super strong, but maybe she just got a little bit boxed in there.
Yeah, I think so. She did a double kick. You could see her in the white jersey. She's sort of come to the back. And look, they're all dropping the drafting boosts. Catherine Ellie hits the front here with 100 to go. But here comes Beck Manning. And here comes Jessica Benrose. So Beck Manning in that almost looks like the Canadian national champs jersey. Here comes Benrose late using her power up, the draft boost, which means she's getting draft assistance. Beck Manning's trying to hold on through the bend. Jessica Benrose has got the speed. This rider, who is this in the black? I think. Oh, it's hard to call. It is hard to call. But I think Jessica's got that. We'll be able to see in the results in Zwift Power very, very soon. They're just going to pull the results, but Gracie, for the Zwift racing, that's just about as exciting as it gets, don't you reckon?
That was really great. And gosh, did you see the maximum heart rate? It was over 200. That's a tough day out. Short but sweet. I think they're going to have a good dinner after this if they don't feel too sick.
Yeah, definitely. Imagine hitting 200 heart rate at night time. That's just before you go to sleep. How do you actually it must be really hard. Have you ever raced at night, Gracie, and tried to go to sleep afterwards? It's a lot difficult, isn't it?
Yeah, even the local crits, you just get a bit wound up and you just have to, go to bed a little bit later, go watch some TV or something. But some of the bigger races, some of the bay crits and races overseas, sometimes they'd just be that a little bit too late and you really wanted to take some caffeine gels or something. And often I just wouldn't because sleep was more valuable to me than having a little bit of boost from caffeine in the race.
I think there was a few caffeine gels ingested in the last hour, certainly. So rest in peace. Their sleep scores on the Whoop bands. We're going to go see some scores now. I think the results are in. And for the women's results, Catherine Ellie hit third place. Beck Manning got picked for second, and it was Jessica Benrose avenging last week and taking the win how good from Bemrose, and one-upping the other Bemrose family members that were just chipping away in the men's race as well. So a super close finish, and well done to Jessica. Gracie, pretty impressive.
Yeah, that was a great ride, and it did look like she kind of led out early in a sense. So, you called it. She was fastest on paper, but she had to still deliver at the end of the day, and I think she did a great job tonight.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. We can see the men's result now. Nick Squilari from the Aero team was third. Nick Kane in second, and it was Adam Emmons taking the win in first, who went early. Remember, we saw the replay. He went early with the Aero boost and just exploded out of the bunch. And I reckon he timed it to perfection with that Aero power up. And I think had he not had the Aero power up, he probably wouldn't have launched. And everyone's waiting to go late, late, late. But if you've got the aero booster and you've got a considerable jump, sometimes you can catch them by surprise, and that certainly worked, didn't it, Gracie? That was a great tactic.
Yeah, it was. I think a few people are going to try that next time. So maybe he had a caffeine gel in real life, but he certainly knew how to use the game very well. So well done, Adam Evans.
Oh, that's so good. Well, it was a really cool circuit, I guess, to see the racing take play on. The Makuri Islands and Nyoko is a really good advertisement for the games Zwift, and of course, anyone that's watched this today and hasn't ridden the course, go and ride it. The Nyoko Makuri World, so cool, and you'll find out how tough that climb is as well. But Gracie, the first time commentating the Zwift racing, how did it compare to some of the in real life stuff you saw?
Look, it's so fun. I am a big fan of Zwift because I like to use it myself, but I'm also a huge fan of Zwift Academy. For Australians and Kiwi riders, it's really difficult as a young rider, but really at any age, to get across to the pro ranks in Europe. And this is just an opportunity that never existed until, the last 5 years. So I think it's brilliant that people from club level all the way up to pro level can get a lot out of this program. But I know my local club, a lot of riders use Zwift. We do it in the winter as a club social thing, but also I know a few of them are racing tonight. So it's just an extra bit that you can find enjoyment out of bikes. And what more do you want than that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess we'll start to see in the next few weeks, I guess, some clubs emerge as the top clubs in this competition. We're going to see the leaderboard at some point and catch up with that. But we've seen already that Nick Squilari has been prominent in both men's races in the top 5, top 10, I believe, making the podium tonight. And then we've also seen the dynamic of the women's race shift in that Jessica Benrose has been on the podium twice, taken a win in the second race. We saw a few more compete as well. So I think that category is going to grow. And we also can't forget, Gracie, of the 400 other entrants that are competing as a part of this club competition. All those other grades, B to D, they were also racing for points. And so it'd be cool to check out the results there on Zwift Power if you can back home. But Gracie, it was an absolute pleasure to call the race with you today. And I guess we'll be back in a few weeks' time. Is that right?
Yep, I'll be back. So thank you for walking me through this process. I had a lot of fun, and yeah, I'm just stoked for all the riders today that got to have some fun in the club series.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, legends. Well, thanks for tuning in. Send it to your mates. Get in the chat next time on the YouTube as well. We'll go through some of the questions and have a bit of a laugh. But that's all from us, and we'll see you again next week.